Who's the CEO of Mercedes? Tell me if you know.
I don't.
Who's the CEO of BMW?
I don't know that
Okay.
either.
Who's the CEO of Tesla?
Elon Musk. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Brand, personal brand.
Hello everyone, Ken here, back with another video for you. Today I had the pleasure of interviewing Kate Strachnyi. She might look familiar because we did a LinkedIn Live just a couple weeks ago together. She's the founder of Story by Data, the Data-Cated Academy, and the Data-Cated Conference, which is coming up on October 27th. I've linked the sign-up page in the description as well for that. She's an advisory board member for the Initiative for Analytics and Data Science Standards and the International Association for Data Quality, Governance, and Analytics. Kate is also an author, a data visualization specialist, and was named a LinkedIn top voice in data science and analytics in 2018 and 2019. Man, that was a mouthful. She's done a lot. I've left links to her YouTube channel and her LinkedIn below in the description and pinned in the first comment. Definitely go check out her stuff to learn more after you've watched this interview. In the video, we dive deep into what data visualization is, why data storytelling is important, and how to share your work and create a brand on LinkedIn. Now, on to the interview. Kate, thank you so much for coming on. I've been getting so many questions about data visualization recently, how to break into data analytics roles. And I thought you were the ideal person to bring in to talk about, one, how to get better at visualization, and two, how to really share what you're working on in that space. Again, thank you for coming in.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
Perfect. Well, I obviously talked a little bit about your background in the intro, but I'd love to hear it in your own words, how you got into the field related to data analytics and data science, and how you developed that skill set, and also what got you so excited about data visualization in general.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually happened by accident. So I started my career first in business development and sales of risk management training programs, met a chief risk officer who actually hired me to be a risk analyst, and then got picked up by a Deloitte recruiter because I had a risk blog at the time. I think that's before blogging was really cool. I just put up a blog to document my journey of learning risk management. Who knew that was actually going to help me later on in life in my data career? But basically, I spent about 4 or 5 years at Deloitte working in risk management, regulatory compliance practice. And when I was having my first child, I decided I didn't want to do the client work anymore. So I asked them for an internal role. And that led to me being welcomed into the world of data. I didn't select a field. I didn't go through field and, try to find something that helps me work from home or, gives me more flexibility. But it happened to be data. And I think my first week on the job, I just fell in love with data visualization because it was just so exciting that you get to take either 1 or 2 or 3 or more data sets, and from different places you can put them all together and come up with this pretty chart or dashboard that actually drives decisions, right? So it basically helps you uncover insights. It helps you communicate the message that the data is telling you, and like I said, drive those business decisions, which I love that proximity to the business. I never really wanted to work in the business, but I wanted to be close enough. I knew I never wanted to be on that back end of things where, you're heavily involved in the data cleaning, the data prep side of things. My favorite part was definitely in the data visualization side because it just lets you be so creative. But that's really where all that started.
That's awesome. And well, there's one thing I'd love to point out is how you did create opportunities for yourself with a blog. Something that I constantly stress on my channel is how important it is to share your work. And it does. I think I've spoken to 4 people or 5 people where their work or project, something that they've done has created more opportunities for them. And you are the champion of sharing work, especially on LinkedIn, as well as on YouTube, which I'll link in the description. Why did you decide to start sharing via blog? That's something that, people ask why I created a YouTube channel, and it was like, I don't know, I just like making videos, and I got lucky with one and I decided to make more. But I'd love to hear about that decision.
Yeah, sure. So for the risk blog, I started it because actually similar to what I did for data, but the risk started because I didn't really know risk management. I used to sell the trainings, which is very different than actually doing risk management. And anything I learned, I was basically like, okay, if I Google a new regulation that just came out, there was not much on the sites that I was reading, or it was really complicated to understand. So I'm like, I can make this so much simpler. I can write 2 paragraphs. And I even had this thing called Risk Management Weekly. I didn't keep up with the weekly. I remember somebody telling me, don't call it the Risk Management Weekly because you're not going to do it on a weekly basis. I'm like, oh, yeah, I am. Yeah, it lasted like 6 weeks. But anyway, because, work gets in the way. So my reason really
And
was
life.
to, yes, work and life, exactly. Well, at that point, I didn't have the kids yet, so it wasn't as much. Who knew, like, life was easy before them? I didn't think so before that, but anyways. Yeah, so the main goal there was so I can come back and refer to it when I needed to, and then also providing other people with a simpler way of explaining some complex topics. And I carried that throughout with the data stuff as well, because when I would learn how to do something complicated in Tableau for the first time, and I would have had to read a couple blogs, watch a couple YouTube videos to get my answer. And I'm like, I can simplify this even more, make a 2-minute video that I can refer to later. So I, like, instead of writing stuff in a book, I created my YouTube channel, Story by Data, where I would just make these short videos. And eventually things just started, kind of like you described, things just started picking up and people started watching it and commenting and engaging. And I think that's a little bit addictive because once you get some engagement, you're like, oh, I want more. So I kept putting out more content. But it was really the community that kept me coming back, because people are so nice in a data space, as you know, like on LinkedIn, on YouTube. YouTube, not as nice. I think LinkedIn is a lot nicer because people have their real names on there. I think they're a lot less likely to put some weird comments.
Yeah. Well, something you said in there was really brilliant about how you can create value by simplifying things. I think the trend in data science and machine learning is to over-engineer, to overcomplicate things. And visualization, in essence, is to take complicated data and to make it clear and make it easier to digest. And
Yes.
a lot of people don't realize that a project can do that. And they don't have to do any, well, visualization can be very complicated, but if they're creating value through making it easier to understand, that's just as important as making a great pipeline or making something that's very predictive. So for anyone watching, when you're building these projects, yes, you can make a great predictive model, but you can create just as much value if you're taking the same data and you're giving it legs, making it useful to someone else through that lens. So I did touch on it a little bit, but I would love to understand from your perspective, why data visualization is so important. I mean, it's not just to simplify, it goes so much further than that. And I would love to hear, that story from your end.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, data visualization played a big role in helping management at the company understand what's going on with their business, right? So it's a way of communicating. Humans are a lot more capable of understanding things when they can visualize it, when they can see it. So pulling insights from data, I would say, is the main thing, right? But it does go further because there are a lot of nuances in data visualization, like following visual best practices, right? Because anyone can create a chart or graph. Trust me, anyone. I did a little presentation at my daughter's pre-K 2 years ago, and all those little 3 and 4-year-olds were able to put together a bar chart of their favorite color Skittles. I was gonna say stickers. Awesome. Skittles. Yeah, it gave me some issues because some of them ate their Skittles. I had to give them used Skittles. It melted in their hands. It was crazy. Don't use Skittles for pre-K classes, but maybe
Starburst next time because they're wrapped.
Yeah, I'll use Legos or something else. Something else that they can't eat. But what I realized was even at that young age of 3 and 4, they already understood the concept of a bar chart. They understood that the bigger bars meant it's, more popular color, and we talked about it. And I think we're just born understanding that things need to be categorized, organized, like, you can be sorting your blocks and your balls separately. That there are different things and they have to be categorized in order for them to make sense. So I think it all comes back to making sense of the data you're working with and communicating it in a way that actually drives decision or can alert your business or, whoever it is you're working with to actually make a decision or be aware that they need to go a little bit deeper. So Data-Viz, very, very important. I mean, everything on the back end is also important, right? Like the master data management, the cleaning, that pipeline that you talked about. But I feel like it all leads up to that one thing of visualizing and communicating that data, because without that, or if you build a dashboard even and people don't actually use it, right? If you have got zero user adoption, then what was the point of that whole project, right? If people are not actually going to take action on the data that you were just analyzing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I think one thing I'd like to add is that what people also usually don't realize is that data visualization can also save a tremendous amount of time, right? And time equates to quite a lot of value in the business world. And so not only does it help people self-service if they're looking at a dashboard, understand the decisions they need to make, it can help them do that faster. Rather if I put together a briefing, like who's going to read that? If I show someone a couple of charts, they're definitely going to flip through it. So, some of these, I would say that that's like an ancillary benefit. They have tremendous value, tremendous impact. I'm not going to read a 10 paragraph email, but if you send a picture in it or like a link me a dashboard.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in that sense, if it's a really good dashboard, I might get lost in it and waste like 2 hours, but at the same time. So you did mention some of the nuances of data visualization. For example, I know pie charts are going out of vogue. Or I got one of my friends is like a Tableau expert when I was working in industry, and I gave him a chart and it had red and green in it, and he's like, "What are you doing? Have you never made a chart before?" Because especially in a male-dominated office where colorblind is more common.
Yeah, 1 in 12 men are colorblind.
If you have 100 people looking at your visual, it's 12 people that might not be able to understand it. That's like pretty big, big portion of your population. But what makes a good visual? What are a couple best practices that you think can hopefully carry some of the viewers here the furthest?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it all starts with, you start with asking the right question, right? Finding the right data to answer that question. And then the next step there is identifying the best method for representing the answer to that question. So let's say your question was, how are our sales doing over the past quarter? Your data points you're going to use are, time of day or, date field with the amount of sales. And then you're going to start thinking, okay, what's the best chart or graph I can use to visualize this data? And in some cases, you might not even need a chart or graph, right? Like they're called big ass numbers where you could just put the number and answer your question. But a lot of times a chart or graph can help you tell the story. So I think it all starts with making sure you selected the right chart to begin with, because something like, that's using time series data, you'll likely opt for a line chart or an area chart, right? If you're looking at categories and you're comparing categories, you could go with a bar chart, sometimes a pie chart. We can spend a whole hour talking about pie chart best practices, but let's just push through. But I think choosing the right chart is the first step. Then color is very important because, like you mentioned, there's color blindness. You need to take it into account. There's the potential that your end product will be printed in black and white because people don't always have a color printer. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind. And there's ways around it, right? You can see what it would look like in black and white by either printing it, or there are steps you can take within PowerPoint or Word where you can view it in grayscale mode. But aside from, choosing the right color, being intentional, and the right chart, you can also declutter your visualizations and dashboards. So removing things like grid lines, and unless you really need them, making sure you don't have extra borders, making sure you're removing anything that's basically data junk, right? Like just random icons and images that are just because you thought they're attractive, or 3D pie charts, 3D bar charts that your Microsoft told you would look so cool, or exploding pie charts, right? Things that some people think are good for getting attention, but they can actually end up not only losing your audience, but also misleading your audience, because a lot of those things I discussed can make your data visualization show the wrongful data. Like if you're using a pie chart to show data over time, like that's just not going to work. You're technically doing data visualization, but you're kind of doing it wrong. So there are definitely best practices to follow there.
Awesome. And so as we talk about what the best practices are, what are some ways that people can improve their visualization skills, just in general? Obviously, you have courses through the Dedicated Academy, which if you are looking to improve that is definitely one of the options. What are some other options as well? And you're welcome to talk about Dedicated as well. But I'm just looking at kind of the broader way of like, what's the path here?
Yeah, I think aside from taking courses, which could be a good way, especially if you're just starting out and you want to just learn the best practices, once you've got some of those best practices or you read some articles on Medium or whatever, the best next thing is to practice, right? Taking the actual data, building charts, and then showcasing your charts, or even going a step further and making a video of yourself explaining the chart. Like, I use the bar chart because, and it's actually going to help you understand why you did what you did. It'll justify it in your own head. And if you post it on social media, you're likely to get some feedback, positive and negative, right? You'll get some great work, keep it up, and then you'll get some like, oh no, why would you ever use this chart? This looks stupid. But that's how you learn, right? People are generally a lot nicer than what I just described, but that's actually how I learn. So there's a site called makeovermonday.co.uk. And if you just type in Makeover Monday in Google, you'll probably find it. But essentially, for the past 6 years or so, they've provided a new data set on every Monday. Sometimes it's Sunday night. I learned about that. New data set and varying topics, so you don't really get bored and you don't have to struggle thinking about where do I get the data set? How do I know what to practice with? And a few reasons why I love this site is, one was the fact that it's always changing, right? New data to play with every week. It's typically for the Tableau crowd, but I've also done Makeover Mondays with Power BI, with Click, with Excel, Python, R, because I like to play around with different data visualization software and programming languages. But basically, you take the data and then you make it over. You make it better. You make it your own. And for the most part, there are not too many data points to work with. And the chart they basically give you a chart that's available. So they either find something in another article, in a newspaper, on the news, and they say, okay, make this chart better. And the cool thing is you get to practice, right? You get to be creative. But the second thing is there's a pretty big community on Twitter. So if you look for a hashtag Makeover Monday, you're going to see everybody else's submissions, especially if you're using Tableau. You can actually go and see like, oh, wow, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And you can look at the data visualization, try to recreate it. And with Tableau Public, you can even download the Tableau Public desktop, whatever, workbook and see how it was created. If it was something unique that you really wanted to learn. So many ways to learn and practice, and highly recommend people actually do this at least for a few weeks, because it will take you a step further and actually give you a chance to showcase your work on Tableau Public, which, you can have your own profile, you can have your own gallery of all your prior data visualizations that, potential employers can take a look at and see your work.
That is awesome. Well, that answered my next question, which is how do you share your work as well? Are there any other places aside from Tableau Public, what a hard thing to say, that you can also share your work related to visualization specifically?
Yeah, I don't know about anything like, I don't know if Power BI or Click has their own little communities where they're sharing their work, but I'd say just on social media is great, because if you design something, you can share a picture of it, right? Download a PDF or an image and actually post it and ask for feedback. Don't just post it and say, look what I did. Okay, great. End your post with, I'd appreciate your feedback. And that's exactly how you're gonna learn. So social media.
That's awesome. And again, we've talked about how social media can help create some opportunities for you as well. So, if you're sharing your stuff there, there's a reasonable chance, especially on LinkedIn, that someone reaches out and says, hey, we could use your skills at our company. So,
oh yeah, absolutely, yes.
There's also a Reddit page. I forget what it's called, but it's basically where people post really cool visualizations. I mean, you can get people with, millions and millions of views. I'll have to link that in the description.
It's like Biz is Beautiful, something like that. I know what
Yeah,
you're
I think
talking
it's
about.
Data is Beautiful, maybe.
Data is Beautiful. Yeah, could be.
Well,
Data or
I'm gonna
information.
really quick. Yeah, it's Data is Beautiful.
I remember the word beautiful because I'm like, oh, that's so pretty. I
Yeah.
tried Reddit. I don't know. Reddit didn't work for me.
I found that so I found that Reddit is not very friendly, especially if you're posting your own content. They're
Yeah, I posted something and the Reddit bot was rude to
yeah.
me. So I'm like, oh, screw this. I'm out of here. Even the
Okay.
automated bot was rude. I'm like, okay.
It is what it is. It is what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah. So, you know, another thing that you do incredibly well. I think you probably have more LinkedIn followers than anyone I've ever seen. Um, you are very present on the LinkedIn platform. You create a lot of content there. You created a great brand for yourself there. I'd love to hear about the opportunities, one that's created for you, and also some of the things other people can do to be more engaged in those communities or to have more of a presence there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start off with I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is definitely my social media platform of choice. I've been on LinkedIn since 2009, but I've only started being really active about maybe 4 years ago, where I really started putting out content. And I still remember one of my first things I posted was I was studying for a Tableau exam, Tableau desktop certification, and I posted about it. And a few people commented and liked and said, "Hey, you got this." And I'm like, "Oh my God, people are so nice." So that's when I got hooked. But a few opportunities that have come through, I mean, there's been so many. One is definitely meeting the people, right? You get to meet so many cool people that I just would not have any way of accessing before using LinkedIn. And you don't even have to have followers or be anything or be working anywhere. Simply just reaching out authentically and genuinely to people you're interested in talking to is just the way to go. And people are friendly and they respond. So the people, opportunities to speak at conferences has definitely been big for me and definitely came out of LinkedIn because I would constantly post about data. The thing is, when you're always talking about something, whether it's cheeseburgers, skateboards, or data, people associate you with it. They're like, oh, data, yeah, go ask Kate. Like, they don't even know what you're talking about, but they associate you with that. So the more you talk about something, the more you're likely to build that brand for yourself. But definitely had a lot of speaking opportunities. Then consulting gigs, right? I always get contacted to do consulting or training. I end up turning most of that stuff down because now I'm super focused on my own business and growing that. Let's see, what other opportunity? Look, I'm talking to you. This came out of
This
LinkedIn, right? I
never
got to
would have
be on
happened
your
without
show.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
Man, this is awesome. And I mean, just learning a lot. Also, it's a great place to ask a question. I've used this a lot for work as well. If I'm stuck on something, I just ask the general public on LinkedIn, use the right hashtags. And a lot of time you take your crowdsourcing knowledge for free from experts that are simply on the platform that are looking to interact and engage. And it's been really helpful in that sense as well, that crowdsourced knowledge area of things.
Yeah, well, that's something I don't see enough people using LinkedIn for.
Yeah.
I love responding to questions on LinkedIn. If something comes on my timeline where I think I can add value, like why wouldn't I respond? Even
Yeah.
if it's even share like seeing projects of other people. If it's someone who has any relationship to me or it's even a cool project, I always just turn around and share it.
Yeah.
It's very easy to do and it's pretty low effort. One
Yeah.
thing I really think does create a lot of value is if you do want to get in with experts or people who have a strong presence on the platform, the most practical thing to do is just comment or like their posts. That's how they get familiar with seeing you in general. I'm so much more likely to respond to a comment, I mean, not a comment, a message from someone if I've seen them comment on a bunch of my posts and I know that it's not just a one-off interaction. I mean, I, I, I think everyone seeks to form relationships that are meaningful in business and academics and mentorship, whatever that might be. And if things are transactional, you never want those are pretty hard to respond to.
Yes, yes, I absolutely agree. I had a LinkedIn Live earlier today with Scott Taylor, the Data-Viz. we had this guy, Pedro Cardozo, the data ninja, who kept commenting over, like we were on for like 45 minutes, maybe more. And he just kept commenting and just reacting to whatever it is we're talking about. And you kind of feel like you know them already. So towards the end of the session, I'm like, hey, Pedro, you're so enthusiastic. Let's just bring you on the show, man. And he got on our show. Like, I never met this guy, but we brought him on the show just so he can interact. Like, because he was so excited. You might as well be here, right? He wanted to be a part of the conversation. But totally agree. I definitely respond a lot more to people who've been kind of commenting on my stuff. I think it's just human nature not to want to feel used for anything. So if somebody's engaged with you in different ways, you're like, okay, I kind of know them. So let's have that conversation. Because you can't talk to everybody who contacts you, unfortunately.
100%. I mean, I'm sure you get far more messages than I do, and I'm already completely overwhelmed with how many I get.
It gets hard. It gets hard.
But one thing I love that you mentioned is you felt like you knew this guy because he was interacting with you on the stream or through comments, whatever that might be. From if you're turning that around from his perspective, or from someone who's looking to get a job, or someone who's looking to get someone on for an interview, whatever that might be, if you do create content, if you communicate with people, if you have a voice. I mean, for example, we both have YouTube channels, right? If someone Googles us and they see us speak, or they listen to us speak, it's kind of weird to see someone speak, but when you have an interaction with them, they've already had like some form of verbal communication with you. You have such a leg up because they're used to how you converse, the diction you have, the intonation of your voice. It's just that familiarity can help so much. And same goes with a blog post. If someone knows how you write, if they've read a blog post of yours, if you get an email from them, it feels comfortable. And there's just such power in creating content, sharing, and having this network effect. Do you have any additional thoughts on, I guess, that whole broader concept of creating this network?
It's extremely powerful. And at points a bit creepy, because I've been putting content out for years now, like 4 or 5 years, and people would just message me saying, "Oh my God, I've been following you for like 4 years," and I'm like, "Oh, I've never seen your name before," because most people actually don't really engage, they don't like, they don't comment, they just watch, they scroll and they watch, and they feel like they know you really well. Like sometimes I'd go to a conference and somebody would come up to me, say their name, seen them before, they're like, "Hi, I've been following you for so many years." And I'm like, oh my God, it's just kind of so odd because I feel like they know me so well, but I never seen or heard them. And I feel like I should know them somehow because they know me. So it's something I had to get over, but there's definitely that familiarity you build by watching people. There's one woman on Facebook. I don't really do Facebook anymore, but when I used to, she posted at least once a day about accounting, taxes, accounting, tax law. She'd put her kids on there. Like she was just always all about tax. And I remember at some point in my business, I needed some help with some accounting. And I'm like, oh, we should just call Rachel because she's always talking about this stuff. In your mind, that person becomes an expert. Whether they know something or not, whether they're great or not, doesn't really matter because they basically have that real estate in your mind as the expert in that space. And I think that's where the goal should be, right? Be the person, because I wasn't looking for accounting services in the moment, but when I did, she was the one who came to mind. And I think that's super powerful. You can get to that with content.
Well, I'm interested, the psychology of that is, do we connect? Is it easier for us to think of a person associated with those things rather than a business sometimes even? It's like, because people are so much more accessible, hopefully.
Yes, I agree. There was, I forgot which audiobook it was, but the question that they posed was, who's the CEO of Mercedes? Tell me if you know.
I don't.
Who's the CEO of BMW?
I don't know that either.
Who's the CEO of Tesla?
Elon Musk. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Brand, personal brand. So that was exactly
their point.
Like, yes, because you're like, BMW is huge, Mercedes is huge, but you don't know the CEO and you don't really care to know, but you know Elon Musk, like, because he's out there, right? He's out there as a person. He's got his whole personal brand. And I know we can spend a whole session talking about just personal brand, but I think it's very important to know your personal brand, right? Know the problems that you help people solve, know who it is that you are, because then it's a lot easier for other people to know how, like, what you're good at and how to approach you.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. If you know exactly what skills I have and you find a position that is a perfect match for those skills, if you're a recruiter, you're going to reach out to me 100%.
Yeah.
Well, not 100% of the time, but there's a lot higher percentage chance there.
Yes,
in
that
general.
percentage definitely goes up for sure.
Yeah. Well, one other thing is that we do mention percentages there, right? This is, in some sense, a little bit of a numbers game, right? The more of a network you have, the more, 0.00001% chances you're creating by just connecting with people, by commenting. Each video I make, each comment I have, each connection that I create adds just an incrementally small percentage to creating more opportunities for me, whether it's speaking, whether it's doing interviews, whether it's sponsorship deals, whatever that might be. And I think a lot of people don't think about it in the big picture. They think about it, I have to make this connection. But if you think about it, like, all of these connections together, they're an incrementally small piece of the bigger picture. Yeah. I think that one reach out becomes a little less intimidating also as you do it more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think of it in terms of, like, putting out content, like we were talking about. I think of it as this huge bucket, like bigger than a bucket, maybe an ocean, right? And each piece of content you send out there sends like another little drop of Kenji content into this bucket of content. And the more you have, obviously, the more connections you make, the more content you put out there, the bigger real estate of that bucket you're taking up. And it's basically like grabbing ownership of this space while also connecting with other people. So there's a term I was looking for, but I can't think of it.
Well, I just got an interesting visual in my mind, and it's like a bucket of water, and you're a little dropper of like
with like blue or red.
Dye. Yeah, exactly.
That's
and
exactly
so when you're dropping it, if you have a lot of drops a bunch of places, it kind of spreads more quickly. But if there's other people in the market, you can kind of spin together and make some cool colors and create something more even unique than what you're putting out there.
And I think it also is a good analogy for those who get discouraged when they've been posting for a month or two, because they're like, I'm not seeing any results. Like, why am I not getting the opportunities that I was promised? And it's because it takes time for that bucket to fill up. So you have to continuously drip that content out and be consistent and put quality content. You're laughing at the drip. I understand. It's fine. You can get it.
Well,
okay.
I mean, consistency is so important, and that's something that with the 66 days of data challenge, I'm really trying to ingrain. It doesn't have to be a lot. How long does it take to send out a tweet? It can take 30 seconds, right?
For some people, it takes a very long time because they second guess. And the biggest fear I think people have from those I've talked to, like making your first post, your video, your tweet, what are people gonna think when they see it, right? They don't understand that no one's even gonna care or look at that tweet, unfortunately. And when they get over the hump of actually posting, then they're like, how do I get more people to look at it? Yeah. So I think it's like a little journey you take. But your first tweet is gonna go unnoticed. Like,
that's so true. I forgot. There's a psychology term for it. It's where we think a lot more people pay attention to us than it's like if I think I have like a big zit over here, right? Nobody probably would notice it if I didn't point it out, right?
No.
But in my mind, it's taking up this much real estate on my face.
And it's all people are thinking right now, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, look at that.
And I would be willing to bet quite a lot that you never would have noticed or even thought about me having
people
a zit
only
on my face.
You know what they care about?
Yeah.
What is my zit looking like? That's what they're caring about.
Exactly. And so, when you're posting on anything, think about how many other tweets are out there, right? How many other LinkedIn posts are out there? Yeah. I mean, it's incredible if someone notices yours for any reason whatsoever. So, I think that I love that concept, that idea is that it's way less intimidating than you think after you get past that hump.
Yeah, because that's something that scared me, honestly, early on. My biggest fear was not that somebody I don't know would see the post. It freaked me out knowing that somebody I do know, like my brother, would see the post, or like the people I work with. What are they gonna think, right? That was like my big freak out moment. And then I quickly realized they don't care. Like, they're like, okay, great, she's posting about data again. Who cares? Like, seriously, because they're all, they're thinking, okay, what am I gonna have for dinner tonight? They don't care about you. They have their own stuff going on, and that's what they focus on.
Yep. Well, I had the same experience with YouTube. I was so intimidated early on because, like, this is so scary, and what are people gonna think? But now I have almost, I think, 150 videos out there. And it's like, if I make a small mistake, I make a blunder, I have a whole body of work to speak for what I've done. Like, if I mess up, it's okay, right? Like,
oh yeah, and
I'm not
everyone
gonna take a
messes
whole
up.
video down. So
I know, exactly. Or who cares? I mean, people ask me, like, what if somebody asks you a question you don't know an answer to? I'm like, I'll just say I don't know the answer. It's like,
well,
that's pretty much it. You can't know everything.
Oh no, 100%. And I think the thing that I would hope both of us do really well is that if we don't know an answer, we bring someone in
Oh yeah, there's plenty of people who would know the answer. Exactly. Or I get messages sometimes, private messages on LinkedIn. If somebody really needs help with a problem that I can't fix, like it's some like self-driving car question. I'm like, okay, I just don't know. Like, if you want, I could post it on LinkedIn and crowdsource that knowledge, and they get excited. But also my network typically comes through. If they know an answer, they either recommend a book, a course, a person, and then you end up helping people, and it's good.
Awesome. Well, those are the main questions I had. The floor is now yours to talk about any initiatives you have going on right now. Anything you'd really like to talk about is fair game.
All right. Well, there's homeschooling on my mind right now. I won't spend time talking about it.
Your kids are going to come out of this like data wizards.
Let's see what happens. They're 4 and 6, so let's see what happens. I do have a LinkedIn live show coming up though in October with an 11-year-old robotics prodigy who's starting his last year of high school this year. He's thinking about college. That could be interesting. But since you said the floor is mine, I really want to talk about the Data-Cated conference. So it's coming up at the end of October, October 27th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a 4-hour
Eastern
first
time.
Ever.
Eastern time, right?
Eastern time, yes, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern. Yes, sorry, I only think in my New York time. But I tried to make it convenient enough for other time zones. It's just really difficult to catch them all. So I kind of went with what most of the speakers were comfortable with. But yeah, you can expect to hear from some awesome people like Bernard Marr, Lillian Pearson, Danny Ma, Kirk Bourne, Miko Yuk. There's just so many. Scott Taylor, the data whisperer. There's Christina Statopoulos. So many people, and we're still getting some spots filled up. I think the total will be between 16 to 20 speakers, so they get 10-minute lightning round turns to speak. Then I'll have some commercials. It's going to be like the Super Bowl of data. I guess we'll have some data commercials, some puppets from Scott Taylor, really trying to make this fun. And yeah, for those who want to sign up, it is free. So if you go to storybydata.com/Data-Cated conference, or just go to storybydata.com and click on Data-Cated conference, you'll learn all about the different tracks and how you can sign up.
And I'll provide some links associated with that down below as well.
Yay, I'm so excited for it. It's my first ever conference. I've been to so many conferences, and then I was like, why can't I just do my own? And then the next day I posted that I launched the page, basically. It didn't take me much time to think about it.
Well, especially now that everything can be done virtually. That's a huge barrier to entry for creating a conference, I think, is now broken down. So I'm very excited for that as well. Thank you again so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this. I think people have a lot more of a clear path forward associated with Data-Viz and also the personal branding element.
Yay. Thank you for having me on your show, Ken.
No problem. All right.